perspective.
Any other views here? We've got looking on that.
Yeah, I was very fortunate recently to have been posted to Iran. I work for an oil exploration company, and one of the very eye-opening events that I encountered there was that during the annual, they have an annual thing called Muharram, in which they mourn the death of the grandsons of the Holy Prophet, and this is a virtual media fest because you have all the news agencies from around the world, and so we go along and see what's going on, and so during the marches or during the sort of the rallies, you will see a few people who'll be beating themselves and will be, which is what I've seen on the news since I was a child. And yet, had the camera just zoomed or panned across about sort of 50 degrees, you would have seen a party going on in the street next door. But the entire media focus was on those sort of 20 or 30 people who were marching with chains. Now, the point was that those people didn't represent the Iranians in any way, shape or form. I mean, they were a group. And to be honest, in a minority. The rest of the people were all in parties because they had 3 days off. And it was an absolute holiday weekend. It was like Easter weekend. And yet, the thing that I'd been told since I was 12 was this is what Iranians are. I mean, and my eyes had just, it was such an eye-opening experience to be behind the camera, to have the 360 view. And I think that quite a lot, the media is being used as some form of tool to forward a political agenda. And as Robin had said, that the BBC has a responsibility to give facts. And whilst I agree with that, it's presenting all of the facts, or at least a greater proportion of them, rather than the facts which forward perhaps the agenda of perhaps the British government. So
right,
I think
Robin,
that's...
if I could, sorry to just interrupt, if I could go to you, what influence does the government have on affecting the media, if it does at all?
I think it does have an impact on the media, but I'm not quite sure that it's as straight cut as you think it is, in the sense that the media protect their territory very, very carefully. So I think the BBC would be very upset with me if I said that they were dictated to by government. They try and avoid that. However, the incidents with the Iraq War and the whole Andrew Gilligan thing, I mean, that did actually cow the BBC into submission, and they've been much, much more tentative since that time. So there has been an impact on the media, not quite in the direct way that we think it has made. But just to pick up on your point that you were making, every cameraman, every editor, every journalist, they have a choice as to where they point the camera and what they show the public. And that's where when I said that they take a subjective point of view, they make a decision every single time they go out there and point the camera at something as to what they're going to film and what they're going to show the public. So, and those decisions are happening every day in every newsroom, and that's what I meant by saying that there are decisions being taken as to what the news should be, and that mirrors the views, the opinions taken by the journalists and their editors.
Gordon, I mean, you've been working in Sky News for a number of years, so how do you actually come about to decide what news stories make the headlines?
Well, it's almost an instinct. You know what's going to appeal to an audience, and you go for that. It's a kind of convention, and there are certain things that you know just aren't going to work. I used to review the papers many, many times a day, and I have this kind of self-limiting thing. Obviously anything that looked like in a headline that was going to be some kind of potential legal issue, I'd straight away strip that out, not touch that. But often I used to ask myself, Rupert Murdoch used to occasionally appear on a story related to him on the front page. And I thought, right, I'm not going to ignore this because I can't, but I'm not going to milk it because I'd be silly to start talking about a major shareholder, News Corp, within Sky News. I thought, no, but that sort of thing is common sense.
Okay, well, we've had a lot of interesting views there. We're going to break. Stay with us. After the break, we'll be discussing Islam in the media and finding out if it is biased in any way.
Broadcasting the true essence of Islam.
MTA, 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 MTA.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. MTA International, reaching the corners of the earth.
वक्त था वक्त मसीहा न किसी और का वक्त था वक्त मसीहा न किसी और का वक्त मैं ना आता तो कोई और ही आया होता मैं ना आता तो कोई और ही आया होता
बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम
إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا.
Welcome back. Today we'll be discussing the media and its impact on society. And in the second part of the program, we're going to be discussing Islam and how that's been portrayed in the media. But first of all, let's take a listen to the word on the street. Terrorism, radicalism, extremism. Since the 9/11 atrocities in New York, these words have formed the basis for daily news reports around the world. However, they're hardly used without mention of Islam and the Muslim world. Whenever there's a terrorist attack, you hear Islam being mentioned and the blame being placed on Muslim terrorists. This negative coverage has brought about a bad perception of the religion amongst non-Muslims, with many believing it to be oppressive and aggressive. So is this image of Islam really an accurate representation? There's over 1 billion Muslims around the world. So it's surprising that the actions of a small number of people have been able to portray Islam in such a negative light, which makes us question what role the media has in creating these misconceptions. Whilst plenty of coverage is given to those who portray a false view of Islam, the Muslims who actually speak out against the attacks are often given much less attention. A recent study in the UK showed that in 1 week's coverage, 91% of all the articles written about Islam in national newspapers held a negative view of the religion, while only 4% of the 352 articles written were actually positive. If the general public rely on today's media and news for their information, then it's vital that the reports they read and see are accurate and truthful.